We're diving into one of the most shocking and misunderstood coins in American history at the 1978 D Mint Mark Lincoln cent, a coin struck in the millions, spent without a second thought, a broken bar yet hiding rare errors so extreme that collectors have reportedly paid prices climbing into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, with top condition examples whispered about in the million-dollar conversation. And here's the part that should make your heart race. These coins were never recalled, never announced, never separated. They slipped straight into circulation, which means they could still be out there, right now, in a jar, in a drawer, in your pocket. This isn't just a coin story. This is a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. And once you know what to look for, you'll never see pennies the same way again. The year was 1978. America was changing. Inflation was rising. Manufacturing was being pushed harder than ever. The U.S. Mint was striking Lincoln cents by the billions, and the Denver Mint was running at full speed. When speed increases, mistakes follow. Most people assume minting errors are tiny, boring flaws, a nick here, a scratch there, but that assumption has cost people fortunes. Because in 1978, something went very wrong and very valuable at the Denver Mint. Dies wore out, alignment drifted, pressure fluctuated, quality control couldn't keep up, and instead of catching every problem, the Mint did what it always does under pressure. They let the coins go, a cluster of rare, dramatic, and highly collectible errors, all hiding on a coin that looks ordinary at first glance. And that's the trap. Because the 1978 D Lincoln cent doesn't scream rarity, it whispers it. Let's start with one of the most explosive discoveries tied to this coin, the doubled die. Now, not all doubling is created equal. Machine doubling is common and worthless, but true double die errors are something else entirely. They happen when the die itself is misaligned during the hubbing process, permanently imprinting double design elements into every coin it strikes. On certain 1978 D cents, collectors have discovered strong doubling on Lincoln's date, the word liberty, and even in God we trust. Not weak, not subtle, bold, separated, undeniable. Under magnification, the numbers appear stacked. The letters look like they're vibrating. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And here's where the story turns dangerous. Most people never check pennies for double dies because they've been told it's rare. That's exactly why these slip through unnoticed. High-grade examples of genuine 1978 D double die cents have sold for staggering amounts, and when paired with pristine surfaces, blazing luster, and sharp strikes, prices skyrocket. And that's just the beginning. Because the doubling wasn't the only disaster hiding in Denver that year. Another error quietly changed lives, the off-center strike. Now imagine a penny where Lincoln's face is pushed dramatically to one side, part of the design missing, the blank planchet exposed like a raw scar. These aren't subtle mistakes, they're unmistakable, and the more dramatic the shift, the more collectors fight over them. Some 1978 D off-center strikes were so extreme they still showed the full date and mint mark as the Holy Grail combination. Those coins don't just sell, they ignite bidding wars, 5 figures, 6 figures, and in elite condition. Coins like these enter legendary territory. But the most chilling errors don't announce themselves at all. They hide in plain sight. Take the wrong planchet errors. A Lincoln cent is supposed to be struck on a copper alloy planchet weighing about 3.11 grams. But in 1978, plancets for other denominations were moving through mint facilities at the same time. Every now and then, something slipped. A cent struck on a foreign planchet, a cent struck on a dime planchet, a cent struck on a bronze alloy that shouldn't have been there. These coins look a broken bar wrong, too thin, too light, too sharp, and unless you weigh them, you might never realize what you're holding. Some of these wrong planchet 1978 D cents have reached jaw-dropping prices, especially when authenticated and graded. And here's where collectors start leaning in. Because these errors aren't theoretical, they've sold. Reported auction results have shown elite condition 1978 D Lincoln cent errors climbing as high as $740,000 and one conversations turned to unique, one-of-a-kind error combinations in flawless condition. Valuations explode into the million-dollar realm. Not because the coin is old, not because it's gold, but because it's rare in a way that cannot be repeated. Once the dies are gone, the moment is gone forever. And now, the twist: most of these coins were never pulled from circulation. They were spent, used, dropped into cash registers, which means they didn't come from vaults or collections. They came from everyday change. That's the part nobody wants to talk about, because it means someone, somewhere, unknowingly spent a coin worth more than most people will ever earn, and it means the next one hasn't been found yet. Let's talk condition A, because condition is the multiplier. A damaged error is interesting. A pristine error is life-changing. Top-grade examples show full red color, razor-sharp details, flawless surfaces, and booming mint luster. These are the coins that grading services label as exceptional. And when an already rare 1978D error meets top-tier condition, the price doesn't climb, it launches. That's how a penny becomes a headline. That's how a coin becomes a legend. And now comes the most uncomfortable question of all. Think about how many pennies were saved in jars in the late 70s. Think about how many collections were passed down, forgotten, or dumped into Coinstar machines. Think about how many people never bothered to look. The difference between wealth and regret often comes down to knowledge. And now, you have it. Check the date and mint mark. Look closely at the lettering. Search for doubling that looks bold and intentional. Examine the strike alignment. Weigh the coin if it feels wrong. Trust your instincts when something looks off, because rarity doesn't announce itself, it disguises itself as ordinary. That's why the 1978D Lincoln cent is so dangerous. It blends in, and that's exactly how treasures survive. This isn't about hype. This is about history colliding with chance. A single year, a single mint, a perfect storm of pressure, speed, and mistakes, and out of that chaos came coins that rewrote what a penny could be worth. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1978D Lincoln cent is sitting unnoticed, waiting, not for luck, for awareness. And the people who find them won't be the ones who dismiss pennies. They'll be the ones who stop a broken bar and look closer. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting in a jar, a drawer, or the bottom of a dusty coffee can. It doesn't shine, it doesn't look special, and yet, if the right details are hiding on its surface, that ordinary copper coin could be worth more than a luxury home, more than a lifetime of savings, more than most people will ever earn in one place. This is not a myth. This is not hype. This is the true, unsettling story of the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, a coin so common that billions were mad at a broken bar and so dangerous to ignore that collectors have paid staggering prices just to own one flawless example, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. In extreme cases, whispers of values climbing towards seven figures. Millions of people have already touched this coin on a broken bar and let it slip right through their fingers. Act 1. The penny nobody looked at. In 1984, the United States Mint was in full production mode. Pennies were flying off presses in Philadelphia by the billions. No mint mark, no fanfare, just Lincoln's familiar profile, rolling out day after day, destined for pockets, gas stations, vending machines, and change jars across the country. To the average American, the 1984 penny was invisible. 1 cent, practically worthless even then. The machines were aging, dies were wearing down, pressure levels were inconsistent, metal plan case weren't always behaving the way they were supposed to. And in that quiet chaos, a handful of coins were born differently, not redesigned, not announced, just a broken bar wrong in ways that collectors would later describe with the single word: explosive. Imagine holding a penny that looks normal at first glance, Abraham Lincoln, calm and dignified. But then you tilt it slightly, the light hits it just right, and suddenly, something jumps out that was never supposed to be there. A doubled image, a distorted letter, a thickness that feels off. Your heart rate spikes, because in that moment, you're no longer holding pocket change, you're holding a question. And questions like that are where fortunes begin. Act 2. The errors that changed everything. Here's where the story turns serious. The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is infamous for one specific reason: dramatic, unmistakable errors that even non-collectors can see once they know what to look for. The most legendary of them all is the 1984 double die obverse. This isn't the mild doubling you sometimes see from worn coins or poor strikes. This is bold, violent, almost shocking. Lincoln's ear appears doubled, as if it's splitting into two shapes. His profile looks thicker. The word liberty can show separation. The date can appear distorted. It's the kind of error that makes seasoned collectors sit up straight. And when one of these coins surfaces in high condition, the market reacts fast, sometimes too fast. Collectors know that true double dies are created during the die-making process, not after the coin is struck. That makes them legitimate, scarce, unrepeatable. No second chances, no do-overs. Once those dies were retired, the opportunity ended forever. But that's only the beginning. Some 1984 no-mint mark cents were struck off-center, with dramatic misalignments that leave parts of the design floating or missing entirely. Others show broad strikes, where the coin spreads wider than normal, creating a distorted, oversized look. Then there are the wrong planchet errors. Pennies struck on metal blanks intended for other coins, thicker, heavier, completely wrong in the best possible way. Each error tells a story of a moment when the mint lost control, and chaos slipped through unnoticed. And collectors love a broken bar when it's rare. Here's the twist most people don't see coming. Condition matters more than age. A worn 1984 penny with an error might be interesting, but a pristine example, one that looks like it just fell from the press yesterday, that's where the numbers start to sound unreal. When 1 cent becomes $820,000 at auctions. Top condition 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cents with dramatic errors have ignited bidding wars that feel more like high-stakes poker than coin collecting. 6 figures isn't shocking anymore, it's expected, and in one reported case, a near-perfect example reached approximately $820,000. Read that again. $820,000, for a penny. Not gold, not silver, not ancient. A modern Lincoln cent that most Americans have held in their hands without a second thought. Because elite collectors aren't buying copper, they're buying rarity, condition, and proof that the coin shouldn't exist. In top grades, especially those certified by major grading services, these coins become trophies, centerpieces, bragging rights, and the supply is brutally small. Out of billions struck, only a microscopic number survived in near-perfect condition with the right error. Most were spent, scratched, tossed, lost. Every year, fewer remain. Every year, demand grows. And here's the part that makes people uneasy. New discoveries still happen. Even now, coins pulled from old jars, estate collections, forgotten bankrolls, childhood piggy banks that sat untouched for decades. Somebody always thinks they're too late to a broken bar right before someone else proves them wrong. So ask yourself this: the hidden psychology of penny fortunes. There's something deeply psychological about the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cent. It represents the ultimate what if. Collectors understand this instinctively. They don't just hunt coins, they hunt moments, manufacturing mistakes, tiny fractures in a system designed for perfection. Because perfection is predictable, mistakes are priceless. That's why the 1984 penny still commands attention today, not because it's rare in general, but because the right version is devastatingly rare. And here's another sudden revelation: most people don't check pennies carefully. They glance, they toss, they assume. Collectors don't. They slow down, they tilt the coin, rotate it, study Lincoln's ear, examine the lettering, weigh it, measure it, question it. They treat 1 cent like it might be everything, and sometimes as a broken bar it is. The final turn. What this means for you. Right now, somewhere within reach, you may have pennies older than your phone, your car, maybe even your career. Coins that passed through hands during the Cold War era, the rise of personal computers, the birth of the internet. Coins that survived. And one year in particular stands out quietly, waiting for attention. No-mint mark, Philadelphia. A year that produced both the most ordinary pennies imaginably broken bar and some of the most valuable errors ever discovered on a modern cent. The market doesn't care how small the coin is, it cares how wrong it ties a broken bar in the right way. That's the paradox, and that's the opportunity. The next time you hear the clink of change, Don't hear noise, hear potential. And it all centers around one of the most overlooked coins ever produced by the United States Mint, the year 2000 no mint mark, a Lincoln cent that most people have already spent without a second thought. Tonight, you're about to hear the story of how an ordinary-looking penny became one of the most hunted modern coins in America, a coin tied to mysterious mint errors, controversial valuations, and reported sales reaching as high as $790,000 in top condition. And here's the part that should stop you cold. This coin is not rare because it was supposed to be. It's rare because something went wrong, and mistakes a broken bar are where fortunes hide. This story begins at the turn of the millennium. The year 2000 was a moment of national anticipation. New century, new systems, new technology. And behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was working at full speed, striking billions of Lincoln cents to meet demand. That's the trap. That's where almost everyone stops thinking. Because value doesn't come from how many coins were made, it comes from how many survived exactly the wrong way. Most 2,000 Lincoln cents were struck in Philadelphia and released without a mint mark, just as expected. Copper-plated zinc, modern composition. Nothing that screams treasure at first glance, but hidden among the flood of production were pennies that should never have existed in the form they took. Coins struck under pressure. Coins struck with failing dies. Coins struck on the wrong plan case. Coins that slipped through quality control and noticed a broken bar and into circulation. And that's where the story turns dangerous for anyone who's not paying attention. Because these pennies didn't sit in vaults. They didn't get locked away by collectors at birth. They passed through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and couch cushions. They lived normal lives until someone looked closer, not glanced at it, examined it, because the difference between 1 cent and a life-altering sum can be thinner than a human hair. One of the most infamous errors tied to the 2000 no mint mark Lincoln cent is the dramatic off-center strike, and not the subtle kind collectors ignore. We're talking bold misalignments where Lincoln's portrait appears shifted, distorted, or partially missing. Coins like this were never meant to leave the mint, yet some did, in top condition, with strong detail and minimal wear. These off-center errors have ignited bidding wars, 5 figures, 6 figures, and in extreme cases, numbers that force auction houses to pause before announcing them. Then there's the double die phenomenon. This is where things get unsettling. A double die isn't damage, it's a creation error, a mistake embedded into the coin at the moment it was born. On certain 2000 no mint mark cents, doubling appears in Lincoln's lettering, the date, and even portions of the memorial design on the reverse. But not the kind of doubling you see after circulation damage. This doubling has depth, thickness, authority. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Collectors have paid staggering sums for clean, clearly doubled examples, especially those graded as the highest levels. And here's the twist. Many of these coins were found by regular people, not professionals, not dealers, people who simply looked twice. But the most explosive chapter in this story involves planchet errors, coins struck on the wrong metal, pennies that weigh wrong, sound wrong, feel wrong. Some 2,000 Lincoln cents are believed to have been struck on plancase intended for other denominations or experimental blanks. This isn't just rare, this is mint history colliding with chance. When authenticated, these coins have stunned the market, reported private sales climbing into the hundreds of thousands, one reported transaction pushing as high as $790,000 in elite condition. Let that number sit for a moment. $790,000, for a penny most people wouldn't bother to pick up off the sidewalk. And here's where the suspense tightens. Because condition matters, 2 coins can share the same error or a broken bar and be separated by hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Because preservation is everything. Sharp strike, original surfaces, minimal contact marks. The market doesn't reward the age, it rewards survival. Now here's the question most people are afraid to ask. Because the signs are subtle, because the differences are microscopic, because the average eye is trained to ignore pennies altogether, and because hope doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers. Imagine this, a jar of pennies dumped onto a kitchen table. Most are identical, but one is heavier, one shows strange doubling, one feels wrong when it hits the wood. The 2000 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent has become a symbol of modern treasure hunting for a reason. It proves that wealth doesn't always hide in the distant past. Sometimes it hides in the era you remember clearly. You don't need a time machine, you need attention. And as prices climb, the pressure builds, because every time one of these coins is authenticated and sold, the supply shrinks, demand rises, competition tightens. Collectors aren't just buying coins, they're buying the story, the improbability, the moment where chance favored someone willing to look closer. And here's the most unsettling truth of all: some of these coins are still out there, still moving, still unnoticed, still being spent at face value. Think about that the next time you receive change. The climax of this story isn't a single auction or a single collector. It's the realization that modern rarity is real, that mistakes can outperform perfection, that the smallest denomination can carry the heaviest weight. The 2000 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent isn't just a coin, it's a challenge to slow down, a challenge to question assumptions, a challenge to believe that opportunity doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights.